Fly me to the moon and let me play amongst the stars. So is the words of Frank Sinatra, of which I am not. So I'm Chazalian here, the voice of reason, and I want to tell you another story. And I'm doing this at night because it's a story of the moon and what the moon could be. Remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. And this is in order to be able to tell you a story, okay? So in this story, this is a story of the moon. Right? And once upon a time, in the deep, dark depths of the universe, the moon was transported here by another race. And they had been fleeing a thing called the Orion Wars. And they towed this huge ball throughout space in order to place it here as a sort of orbiting laboratory, an orbiting way station, a platform. And similarly, you would find it in perhaps another story, something like Star Wars, perhaps like the Death Star, for instance. Just remember, this is just a story. And as they towed this huge ball through, this huge laboratory through the universe, it was impacted by many asteroids, especially when they came through the asteroid belt. And it left it with a lot of scarring, a lot of, and as you can see, a lot of craters. But those craters only go so deep because they never affected the actual crust of the mantle, the metal that the moon was actually made of, in the hollow part of it. So these asteroids, even though they would impact at thousands, perhaps even millions of miles an hour, only go so far until they impact this impenetrable form. But it's in this story, the moon is hollow, and gosh, yeah, we found out about that as well, didn't we? When we went to the moon and we fired the command module at the moon afterwards, and it rang like a bell for 7 hours. But of course, that could just be a story as well. But the moon itself is actually too big to be caught in Earth's gravitational field. And it moves in such a manner that is unique in the whole of the universe. No other moon in no other planet moves like our moon, and is as big in comparison to its companion planet, the Earth, as the moon is. And the moon is just positioned so exactly as to turn so precisely with the rotation of the Earth that you could only ever see one side. And this is why the ancients used to look up and see the same side all over, and they said it was the man on the moon. Did they know something that we didn't do and didn't know in this story? Perhaps there was a man in the moon looking down on us. Perfect situation if you wanted to launch small spacecraft to go down and check on the zoo that you've actually created in this big garden, where you would be placing all of these wide range of creatures from perhaps all over the universe in this story. You would have things that probably didn't really grow up here, things like, well, crocodiles who didn't really evolve here, mollusks, octopi, all of those things shouldn't really be here. A lot of the things we're scared of, we have a right to be scared because they're not normal. Things like spiders, snakes, all of those things. But anyway, in this garden that these creators created, it started in a benevolent way. Unfortunately, the people that actually brought this thing here had a deeper and darker agenda. And in this story, they would be called the reptilians, which is why some people are afraid of snakes. And it gives rise to why every culture in humankind has a history of dragons, because once they were real, in this story, of course. And the moon is in such a manner and is big enough to eclipse the sun. Now, that shouldn't happen, but it doesn't happen anywhere else in the universe. But it happens with us, and it happens with our moon. And our moon, as it goes across every 28 days, it actually links into the cycles of other things, like tides, for instance, and females who menstruate every 28 days, which is why they have called it the moon time, or your moonth time, the time of the moonth. And at that point, they were able to see that the fluids in the human body, which obviously make up about 80% of water, they are affected in the same way as the tides are affected in this story. And as the moon goes round every 28 days, so the menstrual cycle of the woman goes to that. And that's why you have moon goddesses, and that's why the moon has 3 phases, which is always called the virgin, the woman, and the crone, the waxing, the full, and the waning of the moon. So human beings have watched this moon for hundreds of thousands of years, and they've always wondered about what it was. But imagine, in this story, 160,000 years ago, one of the Anunnaki, called Enki, and his son Marduk, took a trip up to the moon to see exactly what it was, because they realized with their projections that it really shouldn't be there. And what they found inside the moon was quite outstanding. They found that actually they weren't the first people, much as they thought that they were, which was a bit of an ego deflator. But they found that the moon itself is a living instrument. And what it does, it creates a 3D projection, creates a matrix of a projection onto what we call Earth in this story, and it gives a false reality to the beings that are there. So the beings in reality are trapped upon this 3D matrix, which they can't get out of, because as far as they know, it's real. But in reality, once they were given the breath of life, or what some people would call the Holy Spirit, they were imbibed with an energy that made them infinite beings in the story. And the only way you can get off this planet is to evolve and get to the 4th dimension, which means that you have to go through the heart center. You have to experience unconditional love. And that's very difficult to do when there's a lot of war around, because these reptilian people, they really don't like peace. And this is one of the reasons why we have this whole even concept of good and evil, because they feed off of fear in this story. And they feed off of an energy called loosh. And that loosh is exuded into the blood when a being is fearful. And we see this in pigs. We see this in cows that are about to be, any conscious being that knows it's about to be killed, gives off this energy and it goes into the blood. And that's one of the reasons in this story why some religions wouldn't want to drink or imbibe the blood of the slaughtered animals, things like Islam, Judaism, which is basically nearly every part of the world in this story. So you actually have this energy, which was a very, very deep, dark race of draconians, which is where we get the word something that is draconian, the Dracos, in this story. And they feed off of fear, and they use the people to actually divide them, to divide and conquer them, in order to create war after war after war, so that the children grow up into fear and poverty and give off this loosh, so that these draconians can actually feed off them. It's been around for a while. So the moon itself gives off this 3D matrix, and it's a reality. Now I wonder if at some point someone would make a film about, perhaps called even The Matrix. Hey, how about that for an idea? Where there is a projection of a 3D reality that people are actually in suspense, but they think that it's real. And they're being siphoned for their energy, for their loosh. Wow, I wonder if someone would make that story. Perhaps they could call it The Matrix. So you see that this is a story, and it's only a story, not imbibed in truth or whatever, that these deep, dark people have been in contact with our government for a long, long time. And they're the ones that give the technology, like stealth aircraft and nuclear fission and missile technology and all that type of good stuff, so that they can actually promulgate the wars that make us fearful, that give off this energy of loosh, this energy of despair, this energy of guilt, all of the negative emotions that we can come up with, they give off a resonance, they give off an energy that these people feed upon, and they demand it, and their thirst needs to be satiated, and there's people in government that will do that, in this story, of course. So the moon itself is there for a real reason, and it's to monitor our progress, because it's not all despair, because there is another group of people, the ones that really initiated who we are, who actually gave us that energy of infinite spirit. And they have an agenda too. And they want to see us get to that point of unconditional love, where we can actually go into the fourth and then into the fifth dimension, and then join our brothers and sisters in the galaxy where we actually need to be. And that is the story. It's just a story of the moon. And I would just like to finish off, considering I started with a song. I'm not going to sing this, but I'm actually going to give you the lyrics of one of the best pieces of music that I've ever seen. And it's got, all that is now and all that is gone, all that's to come, and everything under the sun is in tune, but the sun is eclipsed by the moon. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your support, and thank you for continuing to like and share and repost. And if you feel this is valuable, please do that. I want to get these messages and these stories out to as many people as possible, because we should not be in despair. We should be in joy, and we should be in hope, because as long as there is a single human spirit that is alive, that believes in the spirit of humankind, then there's hope for us. And there's a lot of people that don't want that. So let's be different, huh? So this is Simon Giselian, the voice of reason, out to you.